I've got plenty of things that I want to share with you today. My challenge has been just kind of paring things down, and so I want to do as much as I can, but also want to leave time for questions that Steve White will answer for you. So, or Lindsay Davis or Butch Davis will answer, or is Ann Linden here? There she is. Okay. Let's begin with a word of prayer. Let us pray. Almighty and gracious God, we give thanks to you for this day, and we're mindful of those who are still in harm's way from Hurricane Helene. We pray that you would be with those who are responding to the challenges in so many communities across the southern United States, and that your grace would precede everything they do, so that the work that they do would relieve suffering and bring hope. Be with us today and guide us in this time, and help us to honor you in all that we do and say here for the glory of your kingdom. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. If you need a handout, raise your hand and, okay. All right. When I do a State of the Church, I like to begin just kind of talking about not just the state of our church, but the state of the Christian church, because we're not very different from other churches and what's going on with them. But the American church landscape is undergoing significant changes. Attendance has been in a decline overall across all churches in the United States, with only 20% of Americans now attending weekly services compared to 32% in 2000. So from 2000 to today, it's gone from 32 to 20%. We've lost 12% of the population. This decline has led to an increase in smaller congregations, with 68% of churches now having fewer than 100 attendees. 68% of all churches. In some respects, we're considered a large church. A mega church is any church that has 1,000 or more in worship. So we're still medium to large. The average age of congregants in the United States has risen to 57, indicating an aging church population. This trend throughout the United States is accompanied by a decrease in children's participation, with only 13.8% of regular attendees under the age of 12. This aging of congregations creates challenges for churches in engaging younger generations. However, there are some positive trends that are emerging. Millennials, and that's those aged 28 to 43, have notably increased their church attendance, with 39% reporting weekly attendance in 2023. And this is remarkable to me. So it's 39% millennials ages 28 to 43 reporting weekly attendance, up from 21% in 2019. In 4 years, there has been an 18% increase among millennials attending church. And I'll probably say it again, but the visitors that we're seeing in our congregation at this time, although it covers the whole age range, we're seeing more and more folks aged 28 to 43 showing up for worship. This dramatic increase in just 4 years suggests a potential resurgence of interest in spirituality among younger adults. So that bodes well for the church. But we've got to adapt to the challenges and the opportunities. And one of the ways that most churches are adapting is through technology. Live streaming services have become increasingly common, allowing churches to reach broader audiences and maintain connections with their congregations. Live streaming reaches those who can no longer attend church due to health and aging concerns. But on the other hand, live streaming also helps us reach a more digital generation. This is just on the very front edge of this right now. But there are some churches that now have pastors who are digital pastors. They don't come to the building. They interact with people, all the people that interact with their church online. They're responsible for interacting with those people and developing connections and maintaining contact. Financial pressures remain a concern among most United States churches. Primary costs are personnel and facilities, with 52% of their budgets going to staffing and 17% to facility maintenance. This, of course, leaves limited resources for ministry programs, missions, and outreach. The volunteer crisis is also a chronic issue, particularly as the once highly involved boomer generation, that's ages 60 to 78, pulls back from active volunteer roles. Churches are grappling with engaging and mobilizing younger generations in volunteer capacities. And that's why in the next service, as we've done in the previous two services, we will give people an opportunity to discover their volunteer match with things that we have available here in the church. Now, the picture that I painted here of the American church probably feels familiar because as I read these statistics, it just kind of felt like I was looking in a mirror, although I am older than 57. When I arrived in July of 2018, the church averaged 290 people in worship. Before the pandemic in March of 2020, when we were forced to stop in-person worship, we had increased our average attendance to 330 people in worship across 2 services at the time. From March 2020 until Easter in 2021, we primarily did online worship, although we had a couple of stints where we tried to come back. But we also captured a sizable live stream audience of about 600 people during that time. Of course, these weren't all members or even prospective members, because people during the pandemic often watched multiple church services. They had nothing else to do. But it gave them an opportunity to see what was happening in other churches. But having this option was critical to maintaining our congregation, and we rose to that challenge very rapidly. We'd been talking about doing live streaming, talking about it like we do in the church, talking about it, and then the pandemic hit, and boom, we did it. So once we returned to on-site worship or in-person worship in 2021, our average attendance was 201. So pre-pandemic, 330. Post-pandemic, 201. We still had about 150 people who viewed us online, but again, many of those were members of other churches who continued to watch our service once they returned to their home church. In-person and online worship attendance for members and prospective members was about 260 or 270. So when we combined in-person and online post-pandemic, it was about 260 or 270. So the way we kind of figured it, and online attendance is really hard to gauge, but we lost about 60 to 70 people in overall attendance who either dropped out of church altogether, who took the transition as an opportunity to find another church, which was a trend in all churches across the U.S. at the time, or, as we would later learn, were part of a concerted effort to pressure the church into leaving the United Methodist denomination by not attending worship services and withdrawing their financial support of the church. So it was kind of a perfect storm of things going on in that short period of time. Despite the challenges, here's the good news. Even after losing about 90 to 100 people who formed a new Global Methodist Church down the street, today we're averaging 200 people in-person worship. And again, remember, we've lost 90 to 100, so to get to 200, we've had to replace a lot of folks. And we have. We can account for another 50 people who worship with us regularly online. So we've recovered from the losses created by those who have left for whatever reason and continue seeing visitors and new members. We are growing. And that's the good news. As you can see, we have plenty of room for more people. And so please invite your friends and family to come and to join us for worship, remembering that it takes a minimum average of 6 invitations before somebody will respond to your invitation. The trend among millennials reporting an increase in their church attendance, as I said, is evident here in our church, as many of those who visit with us are in that age group. Our Foundry class, formerly the discussion class, is growing and has become fertile ground for developing church leaders. Many already in the class have significant leadership responsibilities in our church, but many others serve as ministry volunteers, and their influence is growing. One of the most impressive things, the first Christmas party that I went to for the Ferguson class, and I heard the tales that were being told. Some, I think, were indeed tales, but of people going on mission trips, people working with the youth, people invested in the life and leadership of the church. It was just a beautiful experience to hear people recounting how folks had committed to this church in that Sunday school class and made a tremendous difference that I'm sure that even 50 years from now, that class will still be having an impact on the lives of some of the young people that they have touched. But we know that life goes on and that things renew. And in some respects, a lot of our classes are getting older, and we need to look to renewing our classes because it's going to take new folks stepping up to the challenge in order for us to be able to be in ministry, not just in the way that we have been in ministry in the past, but moving forward in ministry in the way that God is calling us to be in ministry to future generations. So, when people ask me, both friends, fellow clergy, but also friends in the community, when they say, well, how is First United Methodist Church doing? My response is, we're doing well, but we're in a slow recovery. This is a favorable position, and it provides a foundation for creating an even brighter future. But we've got to be strategic in this season of ministry. In 2023, we had 20 baptisms, including 5 adult baptisms and 7 professions of faith. Professions of faith are people making a first-time commitment to Jesus. We've done 3 baptisms this year and had 1 profession of faith. So we're off our mark from last year, but with more young adults visiting, I think that we're going to see these numbers continue to grow. Our children's ministry is growing, thanks to Mariana Jordan and her team of volunteers. On Sunday mornings, On Sunday mornings and Wednesday evenings, it's always a joy to see the children actively engaged in the life of this church. Family worship. If you have not visited family worship, find the time to do it. And then come to the other traditional services too. But experience family worship at least one time. This was one of our pandemic-generated strategic moves. But that service is growing. If you haven't had a chance to attend, then come and see the children leading the singing, the Lord's Prayer, the Apostles' Creed, and other liturgy for the service, because you will be inspired. Most Sundays, Terry Stubblefield brings the message, and I can't ever take enough opportunity to thank Terry for his ministry here in our congregation. Terry is the Energizer Bunny when it comes to getting things done, but he gets things done well and really demonstrates the love and grace of Jesus Christ in so many ways, and I'm grateful to him and for the opportunity that I have to share in ministry with him here at First United Methodist Church. We're almost a year into our consultation with ministry architects, and the volunteer accelerator that we're launching today, Connect and Serve, is one of the results of this process. Our youth group took a big hit in May as most of the students graduated from high school and have now gone off to college. As we rebuild the infrastructure of volunteer leadership in our youth ministry with the process and the oversight of ministry architects, we're rebuilding the youth group as well. And we're rebuilding it, hopefully in a sustainable way that we can continue to develop our young people as fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ, regardless of who is here as a youth minister. We want the church to have a youth ministry, and it's okay if we have a youth minister, but we want to have the youth ministry because we're the ones who are responsible for that. We can't delegate that to one person. We need all to be in youth ministry and children's ministry. In both children's and youth ministry right now, we have an awkward age distribution that presents challenges in creating age and grade appropriate classes and curriculum. We have kids scattered across a wide age range, making it challenging to have enough kids in the same age for one class. In other words, we're mixing a broader range of ages in classes to get a critical mass of students when ideally we would have more classes with a narrower age because that's where the kids are able to develop the relationships with one another. Mariana in children's ministry and the renovation team and the youth volunteers in the youth ministry are developing creative solutions to address this challenge, readying us so that as we continue to grow that we'll be able to respond to the growth that we anticipate. Our day school is one of the best in the area, and we're working to connect more with children and their families in that program. Weekly, I lead a chapel service with the children, and I love connecting with them through teaching them about the love of God and teaching them about what it means to be a faithful follower of Jesus Christ. I learn from them and the questions that they ask. It's just a beautiful opportunity for me. Some of the day school children sang in our handy children's choir. We were able to share that experience with their families, many of whom don't go to church here, and we're continuing to work to provide even more connections between those families and our church. And of course, Courtney Rowling and Brittany Solomon are anchor points in our day school ministry, and we're so grateful for their leadership. Let's give them a hand too. We heard some research this last week. Ann and I, along with Katie Beth Carr, were in Kansas City at Church of the Resurrection, and we got to hear Kara Powell, who is in youth ministry research at Fuller Theological Seminary, and she shared some really interesting information. She can statistically prove that investing in children's and youth ministries grows every other ministry. Let me repeat that. Investing in children's and youth ministries grows every other ministry in the church. Making these two ministries even greater priorities are something that we really need to focus on, and I'll say more about this in a moment. We participate with the interdenominational All Saints College Ministry with Trinity Episcopal and First Presbyterian and about 8 other churches of various denominations. We still have a relationship with the Wesley Foundation. I would love to increase our financial support of both ministries, but until we can, we continue to find ways to stay connected to these vital ministries. Our Koinonia Cafe is a hospitality ministry, but it's one of the most intergenerational ministries that we have in the church. I love walking through there and seeing the children and the adults interacting with one another. It's truly a family experience, whether you are here with your family or not. It's a family experience because your church family, that's our meal together, along with what we do on Wednesday night. But we have more people interact on Sunday morning, and it's a beautiful image to me of the kingdom of God, and I'm so grateful for it. I think that this is one of those ministries that is forming critical spiritual and relational connections that will shape our congregation for years to come. So, what are the challenges that we face? As I indicated, most churches nationwide face financial challenges. We too face those same challenges associated with lower church attendance, an aging congregation, and the increased cost of doing ministry. As you can see on the spreadsheet that I distributed, 50.31% of total expenditures, on par with the national average of 52%, go to staffing. And I'll say more about that in a moment. We've lost staff over the past couple of years as some very talented people left us for better opportunities that also paid more, provided benefits. The current challenge is that when we lost those staff, we couldn't replace them for what we were paying them. The market salaries for ministry professionals have increased dramatically over the last several years. Add to this reality that fewer people are willing to work in the church for various reasons that I don't have time to articulate here. But I will say that among church workers, job satisfaction is at an all-time low. And we've got to be sure that we're not contributing to that. But the bottom line is that the pool of potential ministry staff is getting smaller yearly. It's a tough market to shop in when you're trying to hire staff, primarily since we don't provide benefits and, of course, not being able to pay market salaries. Earlier this year, the Staff Parish Relations Committee, under Lindsay Davis's leadership, requested and received compensation increases for most of the staff from the Finance Committee and the Church Council. For some staff, this was the first increase in 4 years. This action was critical in keeping our existing staff. However, adding additional staff at this point is impossible until we get our overall giving back up. The national average for facilities expenditures is 17% of total budget. Now, the sheet that I gave you, these are actual expenditures. We're well above that with 27.5%, mainly because we have two buildings, one 100 years old and the other 25 years old. Just like at your house, both are in need of constant repair. Many of the systems in these buildings have reached the end of their usable life and need replacing. So it's a continual dance of evaluating the costs of maintaining or replacing the obsolete systems based on the resources that we have available. Butch Davis and the trustees have decreased the amount of deferred maintenance through prioritizing projects. We've had a lot of deferred maintenance, stuff here that needed fixing for years, that has been addressed through good management. We've got some major capital expenditures ahead of us, though. In 2021, just kind of looking back, the Congregational Endowment Fund paid about $250,000 from their net earnings to replace the 100-year-old boiler in this building. We're grateful for the resources that they provided for that capital project. We couldn't have done it without that help. But they're not just funding capital projects, they also funded two ministry projects in youth ministry, one in 2022 and one in 2023. The Congregational Endowment Fund is a repository of funds intended to provide long-term benefits to the First United Methodist Church of Florence. Under the leadership of Aubrey Wilson and the Board of Directors, the fund is managed so that the corpus of the fund is protected in safe investment instruments, but the returns generated through investments can be reinvested for faster growth. Annually, the directors add back 10% of the annual growth to the corpus, while also making some funds available for ministry or capital projects in the church. And you can see on the sheet the current balance, noting that that's about a 7% increase this year in that. And so grateful for the leadership of Aubrey and our fund manager, Timothy Wakefield, and the rest of the board for all that they do for the life of our church and for the future of our church. We know that over the next 3 to 5 years, we'll need to replace the chillers for our HVAC in the newest part of the building and the roofs on both buildings, the sanctuary building. And if you've ever noticed the roof, it's a tile roof, and we've got a flat roof on the other building. The cost of roofs alone in today's dollars is about $650,000. Depending on how long we can keep the chillers running, and if we have to replace them both at the same time, again, this is in today's dollars, we're looking at $75,000 a piece, but probably that's probably even about a year old, that estimate. So we're looking at anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000. And this is just to keep things operating. How many here know what a required minimum distribution is? All right. According to the IRS, required minimum distributions, or RMDs, are the minimum amounts you must withdraw from your retirement accounts each year once you reach age 72. There are some tax advantages to having your RMD redirected to the church as a charitable contribution. One of our congregation members has made a remarkable commitment by offering this year's required minimum distribution to go to the church, challenging other folks to use their RMDs to match his gift of $111,000. What he envisions is that we get at least another 111,000. They're not leaving because they think this is bad news. It's the choir. But this person would like to see us have even more money set aside for these huge capital projects that we're going to have to cover. We're not real sure exactly when, but we want to be prepared for that. And so he is setting aside $111,000 and wants us to match that. And there are, as I said, there are tax advantages. If you haven't already directed your RMD this year, then please help us at a minimum double this generous donor's gift by directing your RMD to the church. Your gift will provide for these long-term capital needs so that when it becomes necessary, we're not wondering about where's the money coming from, but we have the money on hand. By giving your RMD directly to the church, you support our mission, but you also benefit from reduced taxable income, potentially saving on taxes while making a meaningful impact in our community. Remember, I'm a preacher and not a tax professional, so talk to your accountant about this, okay? I hope, though, to announce as soon as possible that we've reached or exceeded our goal of an additional $111,000. So if this is something that you can do and are willing to do, let me know so that we can celebrate this generosity, which, again, is a mark of this congregation. This person wants to remain anonymous, but I want you to know that this is a pattern of giving that I'm aware of since I've been here. That this is a generous person who loves this church and wants to give us every benefit that he can. And so may that inspire us. In 2023, we sold the Bauer building, netting about, I've forgotten the exact amount, but I know it was about $525,000 that we deposited into our building fund. We set this aside to cover deferred maintenance and capital projects that we anticipate. As you can see, we have just under $450,000 in that fund as of Friday. $90,000 of that was recently deposited as an insurance settlement from our sprinkler malfunctioning. And so what we have done, though, is we have used this money to cover some of the deferred maintenance that I mentioned earlier. One project of note, sorry that the choir is not here to celebrate this with us, but on this wall in the basement, I am told that for 50 years there has been a moisture problem that has been detrimental to the choir. The smell, the dampness. For 50 years, that was low on the priority list. But that has been taken care of because of the money that we received from the sale of the Bauer building. But not just that, but the choir, through their special fund, also contributed money. And if you go down there now, there's new, beautiful flooring down there, and the walls have been painted, and it's really a pleasant space to be in. And, that's what we want to do, is we want to eliminate all of this deferred maintenance and then just keep up with things as we need to. We have a new facility supervisor, Sam Milwee, who is making a significant impact as he manages the minor repairs that are often needed in such a large facility. He's also monitoring our vendors to ensure we're getting the most value out of the products and services that we pay for to keep this place up and running. I want to personally thank the staff and the volunteers who stepped up to help us clean and maintain the facility for about 2 months before Sam was hired. the beautiful thing is I never heard anybody say, "That's not my job." Everybody was willing to chip in and do whatever was necessary. And I'm so grateful to be a part of a church where people see a need and meet a need. A lot of times I would get a text or an email from somebody saying, "How is it the church? And I saw that this needed to be done. Just wanted to let you know that it's been taken care of." And that's this place. That is who we are, and I'm so grateful for all the efforts. Repairs on the sanctuary will begin in January, including replacing the carpet. We are replacing the carpet with what we currently have, with a slight caveat. We don't know that we can get this exact carpet or the exact color. It depends on what's available in the market, but we're going to do our best to get as close as possible to what we have. But all the pews are going to have to come out. We're also going to do a little bit of restructuring in this area here. I have been greatly concerned when we have the bell choir and we have the tables blocking passageway up here, or when we have the orchestra for our special music events, how the aisles get blocked here. What we're going to do is we're going to remove the first 2 rows of pews, and the only difference you will see up here is this part of the floor will be extended out, and the altar rail will look just like it is. It's just going to move forward to match the edge like it matches now as we extend the platform. That will make it easier for the bell choir to set up behind the chancel rail, the altar rail here, as well as the orchestra, and I just think it will be safer. And we'll still have plenty of room for you to invite your family and friends. Got plenty of room here on the floor, so I wanted you to be aware of that. There are 3 areas where we've got a lot of work to do. I've already mentioned what we're doing in children's and youth ministries. However, we've got a lot more work to do in programming. When we shut down our in-person worship and in-person activities because of COVID, we were working on a discipleship process or a discipleship pathway that we wanted to know how we were leading people to a place of belonging, believing, and becoming. That we wanted to have, that whenever anybody showed up here, that we knew the process that we were going to put them through to help them feel like they belonged here. That we would, if they didn't already have faith in Jesus Christ, that we would help them to develop faith in Jesus Christ, but even more that they would be continually transformed. Is my battery going bad, or it was a new one? So, but that people would be continually transformed into the likeness and the image of Christ, which is what we're called to do. All of that kind of fell to the back seat, so to speak, and we need to bring it back up to the fore and begin working on that. As I said, we're not in a position to hire more staff. As we're able, we will, but right now, we rely more and more on volunteers, which is not a bad thing. It's not a compromise. It's not a setback. Volunteers can be some of the best ministry folks that we have. Our volunteers are unpaid staff, and we're so grateful for all the things that you do and the many ways that you serve. I could list them all, but the good news is that when you take the survey, you'll actually access several different areas where you can serve, and you might go, "Oh, I didn't know we needed that." this is a must for us to be a healthy church. Adding staff is not always the best way forward. So adding volunteers is always a good move, and then we'll add staff as we're able. As I said, we must invest in children's and youth ministries because it's proven statistically that the church benefits when we do. If you look at the financial sheet under Nurture Ministries, that is where children's and youth are included, and you'll see that we are at 2.33% of all the expenditures through September 23rd. Now, that's not to say that we're not putting money into children's and youth ministry, but it's just not coming through the budget. It's coming through special funds, which you can see on the sheet that there is the special fund. These are restricted funds that people give that we have to spend in the way that they direct. Okay? We can't, we look at that, oh gosh, we've got $181,000. No, we don't. We have $181,000 for specific ministries and specific outcomes that people are working toward through their giving. And so some of that money, thankfully, people have designated for children's ministry and youth ministry, and we're grateful for that money. But it needs to come from the budget. Because when the children and youth piece of the budget pie gets bigger, the whole pie gets bigger. Let me repeat that. When the children and youth piece of the budget pie gets bigger, the whole pie gets bigger. So, one of the things that we started talking about actually toward the first of this year was revisiting our vision and specifically a strategic plan for what do we need to be doing right now. Our vision is that we exist to offer creative experiences that lead people into inspiring encounters with God, meaningful engagement with each other, and lifelong transformation. We want to revisit that and just see, is that still who we are? Someone that we've talked with about leading a process with us says, well, that's really more of a purpose statement than it is a vision statement. But once we know, okay, well, what are we trying to achieve? What are the steps that we need to take to get there? And so hopefully before too long, you'll be hearing more. I've made contact with somebody that I think is going to be able to help us. There is money in the restricted funds that has been designated for a visioning process that we'll be able to access for that. And so that won't require any hit to the budget, but that money is specifically set aside for that purpose. So I think that will help us get our priorities straight moving forward. Another area, the second area of concern to me is missions. We're providing volunteers in several areas, the Help Center, the Shoals Community Soup Kitchen, the Wesley Foundation, and the list goes on, but we need to provide more funding. You can see that from the budget we've given practically nothing to missions, 0.04%, and again, that's like with children and youth. That's not an accurate representation of what we give to missions, but that's just what we put in the budget. That's how much we're spending from the general fund budget for missions. People prepare food for the soup kitchen. They buy food and supplies for the Help Center. They put together the Honduran Christmas shoe boxes, volunteering at the Caring Place. In addition, people make financial contributions to the children's home, now known as Embrace Alabama's Kids, to the United Methodist Committee on Relief, and to countless other organizations. The line item in the finance sheet there says apportionments. This is money that we pay to the North Alabama Conference of the United Methodist Church based on 10% of our general fund giving. So we budget for that, but if we do better in our giving, then we overshoot our budget. And that's a good thing because we're taking in more funds, and that's a good thing. It's right now over 10% because there are additional monies that we pay to the conference that help fund the pension program for every United Methodist clergy in the North Alabama Conference. Okay? So that's why you see that it's above 10%. But the 10% that we give covers the missions and administration of the United Methodist Church at the conference level, at the jurisdictional level, and at the general church level. What I would like for us to set as a goal is that we aspire for 10% of our budget annually to go to missions. That we aspire annually for 10% of our budget to go to missions. We are a church that is not rolling in the dough, but we are a church of resourceful people with means, and to whom much is given comes much responsibility. And I just think that we can do better on that. And I don't say that to beat us up. I'm just saying let's aspire to that and let's work toward getting there. I want to close before I take questions. The third area of concern to me is stewardship. But let me add a caveat here. Pledged giving in this church. When people make a pledge to this church, across the board, people honor that pledge. If we had broken down our giving between pledged giving and unpledged giving, what we would find is that we're right on target for pledged giving. We may have overshot our unpledged giving estimate for this year. We knew that it was going to be a challenge for us to receive the amount that we put in our budget for unpledged giving, but we felt like that through growth that we would begin to be able to close that gap. But I go back to my assessment of where we are is that we're recovering slowly. And so we've got to be careful that we don't outpace ourselves because the recovery is slow, but we're recovering. And so as we move further into our stewardship campaign this year, that our theme is all in, we need people to seriously consider what they can do for the life of our church. I think that the RMD challenge, I thank God for that. We need to shore up our general fund giving as well. You know, it's a balancing act. Right now, 50% goes to staff, 27.5% goes to facilities. The only way that we'll see those numbers come down is if we grow the pool of resources available. And so, as we do our stewardship campaign this year, ask God, am I doing what I can responsibly? Am I doing what I can to help this church continue to grow and develop, making disciples of Jesus Christ? We don't use guilt. We don't use coercion. We believe that God will tell you what you need to do, and what you do is between you and God. We'll encourage you. We'll support you. We'll pray with you. We'll do whatever you need us to do to help you discover what's possible for you and your giving for next year. Now, when we look at the operating fund, the general fund here, that number's pretty low. There's a payroll that just came out of that is not actually reflected in here. And there's just general cash flow in there. But you look at what we started the year with, and you look at where we are cash flow right now, and there are days that it gets pretty tense, just to be sure that we're able to get things covered. But we want to focus on ministry. We want to focus on changing lives. And so whatever part you can play in helping us keep our focus on the most important things, we would appreciate greatly. I thank God for you. This is a beautiful place filled with beautiful people who are doing beautiful things, and it's a pleasure to be able to serve as your pastor. And I can't wait to see what God is yet to do in our midst. I'm trying to be patient. We're going to get there. Praise be to God. Questions?
R&D's out.
Yes.
Is that just for other R&Ds or?
No, other gifts, yeah. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, he would just like to see us at the end of this have at least $222,000 set aside for these big expenditures, because they're coming. They're coming. And I might say that our finance committee, our trustees, are talking about what's known as a capital reserve study, where all of our mechanical systems and all the other systems in the church will be evaluated, and that we'll be able to predict when things are going to go bad, but it helps us know we need X amount of dollars in a reserve for this year. We'll need X amount of dollars for the next year. We'll need X amount for the next year, just to help us plan and be ready for things when they come up. It's just good stewardship and good management. Other questions? Yes, Dick. Right. Great. Thank you for asking that question. We have zero debt other than whatever the balance is on the monthly ministry credit cards. We have zero debt. That shortfall has been covered by cash reserves that we carried over in the general fund from 2023. But we have zero debt other than, I don't even know what that amount is on the credit cards, but it's not a lot. And it's paid off every month. Well, if you have questions that come up later, feel free to reach out, text, call, drop by. Would love to answer any questions that I can. Lindsay Davis is our staff parish chair. She can help with staff questions. Butch Davis can help with trustees. Steve White is our church council chair. Ann Linden is our finance committee chair. Aubrey Wilson is our congregational endowment fund chair. And feel free to talk to them. They would love to talk to you. So receive this benediction. Go in peace and serve the Lord with gladness in all you do. Amen.